Hello, my name is Emma. I'm sitting on my floor in my messy room. I'm wearing a granny sweater and I'm filming on my iPhone, which means I don't know where to look, so this is gonna be an A plus quality video. Anyway, hey, so today I'm going to be doing the Little Less Lonely tag, which is a tag that I created almost 3 years ago today. Actually, like November 19th would be 3 years ago today, but I just feel like doing it today, so it's kind of like a little early, but it's fine. This is a tag that I created during my first year of BookTube, and it's my favorite thing I think I've ever done on BookTube. It's simply just a tag full of open-heartedness and kindness and self-reflection, which are three things that I really appreciate and love and am very inspired by. So I thought that I would do this tag again, as it is a tradition. Although I'm throwing it back and doing my original questions in past years, I have sort of done a little like spin-off versions of A Little Less Lonely tag, but this is going to be the original. Yeah, I'm finding that this year has been a really great year for me in terms of being more open-hearted. There's so much evil in this world and so many things that we have to really work very hard at to fight and to combat. And I think one very easy way to fight and combat hate is through simply by loving people and accepting people and validating people and being open-hearted, which is something that I've struggled with my entire life. I've always been kind of a cynical cow. If you meet me in person, I kind of flip-flop between being very cynical and being very loving. But I find that when I put more love into the world, I feel better, and I know that the world is a little tiny teensy bit better, which is, all we can do. Sometimes all we can do. Sometimes we can do a lot more. Anyway, so without further ado, let's just get started. So the first question is a classic that seemed to get you. Basically a classic book, modern or not, where you identified with the main character, any of the characters on a deep level. So I chose a book that I've talked about a lot. Note, I haven't been reading a lot recently, meaning like I haven't finished a book in a month and a half because I've been really busy, so hopefully doing this tag will also get me reading again. Anyway, so that book that I chose is Gaudy Night by Dorothy Sayers. I read this for a research grant, as you can see, all of the tabs. And why I chose this book is because the main character, Harriet Vane, is so cool. She's so interesting and funny and smart. But that's not the reason why I chose it, and that's not the reason why I feel like this book, I connect with this book so much. I connect with this book because Harriet struggles with understanding herself and understanding her own vulnerability. Harriet's very afraid to be vulnerable. Harriet's very afraid to let down her guards and to let specifically Peter Wimsey in, or to let any sort of emotional stuff in. She's nervous of it. She's wary of her own emotions, and I think that's very uncommon at this time, to have a female character that complex who's a little afraid of her own emotions, and that's not a story that we get very often with women. Normally women are the emotional ones, are the ones that are very connected, so I think it's interesting to read a character like this. And I struggle with the same thing, especially in relationships. I'm afraid to show myself. I'm afraid to let go and let myself feel what I am feeling, and reading this reminded me that that's okay, and that people struggle with that. And in this case, Harriet learns to accept her emotions, and she learns to accept her feelings and lets people in. And I think it's really wonderful and inspiring. And also it's set in a women's college, and I went to women's college, and even though this is set in the 1930s and 1920s, it still rings very, very true today. So I love Gaudy Night. Anyway, next question is a surprise, a book that surprised you with how much it affected you, and I chose The Woman Upstairs by Claire Messad. I read this for a class a couple years ago, and it's basically about, a woman who feels very unnoticed. She feels like she let a lot of her dreams go in order to just be like the woman upstairs, the unnoticed woman, the woman that people like but don't think about, the unmemorable woman. But this book is about this character finding herself, and finding herself in a very messy, complicated way, in a way where she ends up getting hurt by this self-discovery that happens through another woman that comes into her life. And I just really did not understand how much this book affected me when I read it. I remember being like, wow, that was really good. I really liked that. Okay, I'm gonna move on. But I'm still, like, 2 years later thinking about this book. I'm still thinking about this character and how complexly Claire Messud writes her and how interestingly Claire Messud writes her. She's a character who's completely dislikable and likable in equal measure, which I feel like, again, is very hard to find with a female character. Reading this book felt very true to me, and also it felt very foreign to me, which I think is a really beautiful, like, intersection. I could connect to a lot of it, but I also felt very distant from it, and I think that that's a difficult thing to marry, and it surprised me. It's just a visceral book. The writing is visceral, the character development is visceral, and if you haven't read Women Upstairs, please read it. It's weird and strange and beautiful in equal measure, and if you like literary fiction, then definitely read it. And you like female characters that are complex, definitely read it. So, next we have a book you read at just the right time. And I chose 2 books that are very similar to each other. I chose Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. Jenny Lawson is a writer and a comic in a way, a funny human woman, I don't know. But this book is about her struggles with her mental health, and I read it when I was in a very bad, like, mental place, and I remember reading it, and it was hard for me to read. I find that books about mental health are very difficult for me to read as much as I want to read them. For example, Turtles All the Way Down is a book that I really want to read because I have OCD, and from the description it seems like the main character of that book has OCD in a very similar way that I do, but I'm very scared to read it. And that goes into a whole different thing. But when I did get through this book, and it took me a while, I cried so much because I felt so understood, and even though her experiences are different than mine, the base of what this book is about, which is letting those moments when you're happy be furious, and letting those moments when you're happy be wondrous and wonderful, but also, like, accepting your mental illnesses and accepting the world that you live in sometimes, was something that I really needed to read at the time, and something that I come back to. I read chapters of this book all of the time. So yes, Furiously Happy. Also, The Princess Diarist by Carrie Fisher. I read this book over the summer, and specifically her talking about her relationship with Harrison Ford. I found that to be something I really needed to read. I was in a relationship for a while that was kind of in a very different way and balanced in its power, and reading about her experience made me fully realize some of the own issues that I had because of that relationship. And it was just very validating to read, and funny, of course, and it made me miss Carrie Fisher completely and utterly. But reading it was really important in my own, like, process of learning and discovering about myself in that relationship and now out of that relationship. So I really appreciated it. Next we have a book that inspires you. I chose a couple books. I chose Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay and The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. I chose these books for very similar reasons. They both inspire me to be better, and to be a better intersectional feminist and be a more inclusive feminist, but they both also inspire me to be kind to myself and to be kind to other people, and to know when to say yes to things, and when to say no to things, and when to think critically, and when to let some of those things, like, down, if you will, like, let myself enjoy things for what they are, but also think about them critically. Both these books balance joy and fun, and also thinking critically and thinking about the world we live in a realistic way. And they inspired me so much. I'm still saying yes to things that scare me all of the time because of Year of Yes, especially. Oh, Year of Yes, not Bad Feminist. Next we have a book that calms you. And I chose a book that I love so much. If you've watched this channel for a while, you will know that The Magicians is a book that I love so much. The series, I love it so much. There are a lot of books that calm me. I'm very calmed by Rick Riordan and the Percy Jackson series. I'm calmed by the Harry Potter series. I'm calmed by a lot of things, but The Magicians for me reminds me that people are crappy and kind of terrible, but people can also grow and become better and become more aware and more self-aware, and I find that to be very calming. It's like when you look up into the stars, and some people have a different reaction than this, but when I look up into the stars, I see the vast universe and I'm calmed by how small I am. This book reminds me that people are human and people change and that you have the capacity to change, specifically by watching Quentin grow up, and I find that to be very calming and very inspiring as well. So those are my choices and my picks. I want to know what you guys think. I know some of you guys have done this video and some of you guys haven't, but I encourage you all to do it. I'm going to tag some people on Twitter. I just want to say that being genuine and being open-hearted and being caring and loving to yourself and to other people will make you feel a little less lonely. I find that sharing anything, whether it's books that I love and why I love it, which is what BookTube is all about, to just simply telling someone how much they mean to me, it makes me feel a little less lonely. So I guess the message of this video, if there is a message, is that being open-hearted, one of my favorite new phrases, I say it all the time now, will make you feel a little less lonely, or at least it makes me feel a little less lonely. Anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.